So yeah, as Julie said, we're going to have a real education session on what we classify as the 3 best weight loss nutrients that are out there today that are number 1, effective, and number 2, which a lot of people are interested these days with weight loss nutrients, is safe. So we're going to go into number 1, we're going to be covering green coffee bean extract. And there's a lot of buzz around green coffee bean extract just because of Dr. Oz covering it in one of his recent shows. So we're going to go into the truth behind what green coffee bean extract is, what the benefits of the product are, how it works, and what does the research really say, and what do you need to know about this nutrient. So just to start it off, is it the clicker there? That's okay. So basically to start off, we're going to be going into green coffee bean, as I said. Part of the presentation will also be covering raspberry ketones, and part of the presentation will also be covering African mango. Again, 3 very powerful weight loss nutrients, both proved for their safety and efficacy. But when I say that, that's a very broad statement, and that's really the confusion out there nowadays, is not all green coffee beans, African mangoes, and raspberry ketones are created equal. And that's what we're going to dive deep into to understand these nutrients and what you need to know to ultimately protect yourself from, number 1, getting scammed, number 2, getting a product that actually works, and protecting yourself from a material that may actually be dangerous to your body. So green coffee bean extract, let's just look at the coffee bean by nature. It actually starts off as a fruit. Inside that fruit is actually the bean. That bean is green. That's the green coffee bean. There's a lot of confusion out there. Most people think, oh, green coffee bean sounds like a really good weight loss nutrient, but is there caffeine in it? Is it the caffeine that's working for you? No, it's actually something called chlorogenic acid. It's not until the green coffee bean is actually roasted do you convert chlorogenic acid into caffeine. And caffeine, generally speaking, has a lot of negative side effects. So green coffee bean is powerful by the chlorogenic acid nutrient or phytonutrient within the bean. Now what you need to know about chlorogenic acid is it doesn't just work on its own, it actually needs the isomers of chlorogenic acid. And the reason why on the screen you see something called sphedol, sphedol is actually, Dr. Oz covered one form of green coffee bean called CDG in his first show. In his last show he actually mentioned sphedol. There's a reason why he mentioned sphedol and focus a little bit more heavily on that, because it is actually the most researched green coffee bean extract out there. It actually has 8 published clinicals. We're going to go into that in the next slide, but how does it work? Like I said, this chlorogenic acid in the green coffee bean actually inhibits carbohydrates in 2 ways. It slows down the absorption of carbohydrates from your food into the bloodstream. That's a good thing. You want to keep blood sugar levels stable after meals, and green coffee bean extract does do that. And that's one of the main mechanisms. Number 2, it actually shuts down an enzyme that causes the liver to release glucose. What that means is the second pathway in which it works is it's preventing higher plasma glucose by reducing the amount of glycogen released as glucose into the bloodstream. So again, you begin to see by reducing carbohydrate absorption in the small intestine and reducing glycogen release from the liver, blood sugar level is going to stay consistently more stable after a meal. And that's really how you actually utilize the ingredient. You take it before meals. In fact, one of the studies showed postprandial or after meal blood glucose levels was consistently more stable over a 60-day period compared to placebo. Why do you care about keeping blood sugar levels stable? Because when blood sugar levels aren't stable, you cannot lose weight. In fact, when blood sugar levels are high, you're at risk of type 2 diabetes, which is a very obviously negative health issue. So with green coffee bean, for people that are type 2 diabetes, you should really be considering using something like green coffee bean extract, because it's going to decrease the carbohydrate load on the body and help to resensitize your insulin receptor. Now, it does create that ideal weight loss condition, as I stated, and I mentioned this chlorogenic acid. The reason why I really feel strongly, and the reason why we even launched SlimCentials and the sphedol under the SlimCentials line, is because we wanted to protect consumers from knockoff generic material that really has no benefits and has no safety or efficacy data to support them. Like I said, the sphedol is very specific. It has 8 published clinicals. But what's important to note is the chlorogenic acid is not just the only component you should be looking for in your green coffee bean extract. you should also be looking for the isomers of chlorogenic acid. That's why we launched Green Coffee Bean Plus, because we utilize this phenol, and it includes the chlorogenic acid at 50% and 20% of the isomers of chlorogenic acid. And people ask me all the time, because the dosage of phenol is actually 200 milligrams twice daily. The 200 milligrams twice daily is actually the clinical dosage. 400 milligrams was, a lot of people believe it's 400 milligrams twice daily or even higher dosages. The fact is, phenol seems to deliver weight loss benefits at 200 milligrams twice daily. And this is attributed to its chlorogenic acid and isomers of chlorogenic acid that really stabilize blood sugar levels more effectively than higher dosages of a generic knockoff material that may just be spiked with chlorogenic acid. Because take into account that plants are very specific. When you don't have the full aspect or the full spectrum of the plant working for you, a lot of times that plant nutrient will not work effectively. It's like taking a multivitamin that only has B6 and not all the others. Vitamins and nutritional components work in synergy, and that's the best analogy I can give for chlorogenic acid, is it requires these isomers of chlorogenic acid to work effectively. And so, like I was saying, the dosage is actually, before I go into that, but the dosage is actually 200 milligrams twice daily of this phenol. And that's really all you need. Now, people that are saying, okay, well, Dr. Oz said higher amounts, in all honesty, in the United States, there's a lot more obese, clinically obese, and overweight subjects. So the amount of chlorogenic acid and isomers of chlorogenic acid you might need if you're significantly overweight could be higher. The fact is, the research shows that you only need 200 milligrams twice daily. If you choose to go higher, you may experience better results, but the research doesn't show that yet. The only way that we would show that is actually running a research study on, let's say, 400 milligrams twice daily, or even going up to 600 or 800 milligrams. But the fact is, 200 milligrams twice daily led to an average weight loss of 11 pounds in 60 days. 33% of subjects actually lost 14 pounds. So right away, at 200 milligrams of this phenol, or Green Coffee Bean Plus, before your 2 largest meals, you're on your way to losing an average of 11 pounds in 60 days, which is actually a pretty good weight loss feat when it comes to one nutrient working for you. So basically, and like I said, this phenol, the reason why we're so keen on this phenol is it has 8 published clinicals. It looked at everything. It was actually phase 1 and phase 2 drug testing. They looked at safety, number 1. They wanted to make sure that this material was safe in the human body. They looked at bioavailability, which is basically looking at the chlorogenic acid and the availability of chlorogenic acid in the body. They looked at mechanism of action. They showed that it inhibits carbohydrate absorption in the small intestine, and they showed that it really showed a reduction in the release of glucose from the liver, ultimately keeping blood sugar levels more stable. Really, so those are really the key points you need to know about green coffee bean extract. And phenol, like I said, if you're looking for the real thing, you should be looking for phenol on your label. Because if you don't see phenol on the label, chances are it's knockoff or generic material that hasn't been proven for safety or efficacy. And you don't necessarily need very high dosages when you're using phenol. Like I said, the research shows 200 milligrams twice daily provides significant weight loss effects. If you go higher, you could go higher, you're not necessarily going to get any better effects. Does that make sense? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up to a question and answer. So if you guys have questions on any of these nutrients, write them down. We'll open up to a Q&A at the end of the session to answer any of your specific questions on the nutrients. So that was the green coffee bean extract, and that was the Green Coffee Bean Plus, or the phenol that we went to. Another hot weight loss nutrient that was covered on Dr. Oz. He was very keen on it, and we were actually very keen on it, and the reason why we launched it as a standalone, we actually have a product called Weight Off, which used phenol and raspberry ketones, or razpberi-k, 2.5 years ago. We launched this product, Raspberry Ketone Plus, because we felt an obligation to give consumers what we call as the real thing when it comes to the specific nutrient that Dr. Oz was talking about. We're going to talk about raspberry ketones, but specifically the raspberi-k. The raspberi-k is actually the only raspberry ketone that's been studied to be safe and effective in humans. And that's why we were keen on using it, because we wanted to give people a raspberry ketone material that was safe and effective. Basically, the background is raspberry ketones by nature were actually used as a flavoring agent It's actually, raspberry ketones are actually, when you smell a raspberry, it's the phenolic aromatic compound coming up, and when you smell that, that is actually pure raspberry ketones. Now, to get it in its pure form is quite challenging. And a company called Integrity Nutraceuticals actually went through great lengths to learn how to naturally synthesize this nutrient and make it very pure and very bioavailable to the body, and raspberry K was the result of that. But basically how it works, and we're going to go into basically the key benefits of how it works. Bottom line is when you have raspberry ketones in your body, you're shifting yourself into a fat-burning state. Your body naturally burns carbohydrates before any other energy form. So when you're using raspberry ketones, your body is shifting from carbohydrate oxidation to fatty acid oxidation. The study actually showed 200 milligrams of raspberry K when taken before exercise shift carbohydrate quotient or respiratory quotient to fatty acid respiratory quotient within 5 to 10 minutes. Normally that would take 30 minutes. In other words, when you're using raspberry ketones, your body is shifting from burning carbohydrates to burning fatty acids stored in your fat cells much quicker. So theoretically, the best way to use raspberry ketones is number one, before training. That's a no-brainer. It's a guaranteed success when you're using raspberry ketones. But when you use raspberry ketones before your meals, twice daily, theoretically, you're always pushing yourself into a fat-burning zone throughout the course of the day. If you're in a fat-burning zone throughout the course of the day, you're going to burn more fatty acids. You're going to ultimately reduce the fatty acids in your fat cells. You're going to reduce the size of fat cells, and your weight is going to come down. So the optimal human dosage is 1 to 200 milligrams twice daily. And I want to point out that there is products on the market that have launched upwards of 500 milligrams. That is, with every nutrient that God has created, there's always an optimal human dosage that seems to work the best. When companies started launching 500 milligram raspberry ketone products, number one, they weren't even using the real thing, and number two, it's a far too high of a dosage to be safe for human consumption. Raspberry ketones by nature are actually similar to capsaicinoids molecularly. So when you take too much capsaicinoids, which is a very hot, pungent product or component, it actually irritates the small intestine. But we found that 1 to 200 milligrams twice daily, with ideally taking 200 milligrams before training, is the ideal human dosage for safe and effective weight loss. And that's really what you need to know is, number one is look for raspberry K, and number two, 1 to 200 milligrams twice daily is your starting point. And that's on the days that you exercise, take one of those servings of 1 to 200 milligrams and take it before you exercise. And even honestly, even if it's just a walking session, even if it's anything physically active to get your heart rate up, you're going to benefit from having raspberry ketones in your system before that activity. You're going to get more calorie expenditure, and most importantly, you're going to be burning more body fat during that physical activity, which is great. One other thing I will point out is, in addition to its ability to increase fatty acid oxidation and increase calorie expenditure, it does decrease the fat absorption in the small intestine. So that's another reason why we actually ask you to take it before meals, is because you actually inhibit lipase. Lipase is the enzyme that breaks down fatty acids. So by reducing lipase, you reduce the overall calorie load of your meal. That being said, if you are taking an essential fatty acid supplement, it may be wise practice to take it away from your raspberry ketone, just because there is some decrease in fat absorption. So if you're taking a flaxseed oil or a fish oil, position it away from your raspberry ketone before your meals. Just a side note. It's not a serious note, because if you're taking 14 grams of flaxseed oil, the inhibition of the amount of absorption of fat is not going to be significant, but just a precautionary measure to take note of. So, like I was saying, the science behind raspberry ketones is specifically on the raspberry K. They wanted to show mechanism of action. They took 200 milligrams of raspberry K before their exercise session, and like I said earlier, there was a shift in fatty acid oxidation from carbohydrate oxidation into fatty acid oxidation. So again, think about this. When you have raspberry ketones in your system before your breakfast and at dinner, you're always pushing yourself into a fat-burning zone, which is terrific when it comes to weight loss. So that is really the takeaway when it comes to raspberry ketones. So to protect yourself, make sure that you're looking for raspberry K. It's the only material that's been studied in humans to be safe and effective. Number two, make sure that you're not taking too much of the material. Because if you're going at 500 milligrams, more is not better when it comes to this nutrient. The optimal human dosage is 1 to 200 milligrams twice a daily, with 200 milligrams ideally before training. Once you go above that, just like any nutrient that could be safe for you, you start leading to negative side effects. And we don't want that, so that's where a lot of the nutrition industry gets a bad name, is when people say, oh, that nutrient's great, more is better. Not always true, and is actually a misconception and actually something that we need to actually extinguish from the industry. So those are really the science behind the raspberry K and raspberry ketones. And the reason why Dr. Oz was so excited about it, it is a very unique nutrient when it comes to shifting the body into a fat-burning state. That being said, a lot of times I feel personally it's incomplete when used on its own, because it really is only accomplishing one mechanism when it comes to weight loss. We're going to talk about weight off at the end of the presentation, which was formulated 2.5 years ago, using 200 milligrams of sphedol, 100 milligrams of raspberry K, and 7 other clinically proven nutrients. That is by far NuvoCare Health Sciences' most powerful all-in-one weight loss formula, and it was ahead of its time. And in January, when Dr. Oz did his talk on raspberry ketones, we couldn't keep the product in stock because we were the only company in Canada using raspberry ketones, specifically the raspberry K, which is the authentic material. So going into the last nutrient, we covered green coffee bean extract, specifically the sphedol. We covered raspberry ketones, specifically the raspberry K. Now we're going to talk about African mango. That was also covered by Dr. Oz. But there's a lot of things that you need to know when it comes to African mango. The West Africans grinded up the seed and chewed on the seed as a means to, as a culinary way of living. What they did not realize is that it actually had indirect weight loss properties when they were doing that. What researchers did is they wanted to figure out what in the African mango seed is actually not the fruit, it's actually the seed in the mango that actually has the nutrients called albumins, which are actually proteins in that seed that actually have all these weight loss properties. Now, what are the weight loss properties? Well, African mango and specifically these albumins are what I call is healthy weight loss. They're actually stimulating something called healthy weight loss because these albumins significantly lower something called C-reactive protein. For those that don't know what C-reactive protein is, it's actually an inflammatory marker in the body that is actually the first sign of cardiovascular disease. And what's interesting to note is researchers looked at this specific material called Weltrim IG that's standardized for the albumins, and not only did they note an average weight loss is 28 pounds in 10 weeks, they noted a significant reduction in C-reactive protein and a significant reduction in LDL, which is your negative cholesterol marker. That was actually fascinating, the research, because not only were they seeing the significant weight loss in clinically obese and overweight subjects, but they were seeing all these health shifts, these positive health shifts when it comes to lowering inflammatory markers in the body and lowering LDL cholesterol levels. So what researchers then did is they looked at, okay, why does C-reactive protein reduction have such an effective or strong or powerful impact on having weight loss? And what happens is C-reactive protein by nature actually binds to something called leptin in the body. Leptin and adiponectin are the two hormones in the body that actually regulate body weight. When C-reactive protein is high, C-reactive protein binds to leptin. Leptin cannot pass the blood-brain barrier and stimulate the hypothalamus, which is the central area of the brain that controls appetite, that controls your metabolism, and that controls blood sugar levels and insulin sensitivity. So by freeing up leptin, by reducing C-reactive protein, leptin is able to pass the blood-brain barrier, stimulate the hypothalamus, and guess what happens? Your appetite naturally comes down. Your blood sugar levels are more stable. And your natural ability to burn calories, ultimately your metabolism, is enhanced and increased. So basically, and we've kind of already covered the slide, that's why I really don't go into the slides when I do presentations, because I, generally speaking, I just talk, but how it works, and specifically the Weltrim IG, if you look at the top there, that's the specific material. You're seeing a trend here with the SlimCentials line is SlimCentials is we feel that we are the leaders in clinically proven weight loss nutrients, because when you buy a SlimCentials brand, you're always getting the real material that was actually studied. We call it the real thing, or the authentic material, in addition to the proven dosage. The Weltrim IG specifically is called IGO B131, which is the actual authentic African mango material. That's the one that's standardized for these albumins, and actually is patented and the only one that's clinically proven for weight loss in humans. And again, how is it working? It's improving the function of leptin and adiponectin in the human body. Leptin and adiponectin are the key hormones in the body that regulate body weight. Again, if they're functioning better, you naturally want to eat less food, your blood sugar levels are consistently more stable, and your natural ability to burn calories, in other words, your metabolism, is increased. And again, like I said, ultimately there's a decrease in appetite, an improvement in insulin sensitivity, and an increase in calorie expenditure. What's also interesting to note is these albumins have another major mechanism when it comes to weight loss. They actually shut down an enzyme that converts excess carbohydrates into fatty acids, triglycerides in the liver. So in other words, when you're eating a high carbohydrate meal, if you're taking too many carbohydrates in, your liver will actually take the fatty acids from your food, make it into fat, and be stored as fat cells, into your fat cells. What this Welltrim IG does is it shuts down the enzyme that does that conversion. So basically your body is less likely to convert carbohydrates into fat and store that as fat. And like I said, going into the research, it was phenomenal. 10-week study, an average of 28 pounds in obese and clinically obese subjects. Again, when they're running weight loss research, they're usually doing it on overweight subjects because they want to show that there was actually weight loss occurring. They're not going to do it on individuals that are, within a healthy range of weight, because it's going to be harder to determine if that nutrient is actually having weight loss properties. But that being said, still 10-week study on overweight and clinically obese subjects, there's still an average of 28-pound weight loss when Welltrim IG was used at 150 milligrams twice a day. So, like I said, that C-reactive protein dropped over 40%, LDL cholesterol levels dropped over 40%. So, when you're using this nutrient, and I use the 3 SlimCentials products daily, not because I'm overweight, but because raspberry ketones basically help put my body into a fat-burning state, and I'm using my energy is coming in the form of fatty acids stored in fat cells. When I'm using green coffee bean extract, my blood sugar levels are consistently more stable throughout the course of the day, so I'm not getting the roller coaster, and I'm also creating a state where my body is going to burn body fat. And the Welltrim IG, I personally use it because I love the fact of keeping C-reactive protein down and my inflammatory markers down, because I'm actually an anti-aging researcher and a weight management researcher, but when you're talking about anti-aging, when you can lower C-reactive protein and inflammatory markers, the aging process and disease and disorder declines. Because if your body's in a state of inflammation, yes, obesity is going to occur, but a lot of other diseases and disorders, including atherosclerosis and heart disease, do occur as a result of chronic inflammation. So anything you can do to keep inflammation down, and there's a lot of nutrients, there's curcuminoids, there's the list of nutrients go on when it comes to anti-inflammation, but just know when you're using Welltrim IG, not only are you getting these beneficial weight loss effects, you're getting this reduction in this inflammatory marker. And that is actually a great thing from a health and anti-aging and youth sustainability point of view. So really, the reason why we actually launched these 3 products, the Green Coffee Bean Plus, the Raspberry Ketone Plus, and the African Mango Plus, is because there was a great demand for these products. But what was happening is we found that the market was flooding the market with generic knockoff material that wasn't standardized for the right nutrients, wasn't actually the material that was studied in humans. So we, at NuvoCare Health Sciences, felt an obligation to actually launch these materials on their own as a means to protect the consumer by giving them the real thing in the form of Svedal in the Green Coffee Bean Plus, in the form of razpberi-k in the Raspberry Ketone Plus, and in the form of Welltrim IG in the African Mango Plus, in effort to protect the consumer. These products do work well on their own. For example, if you're a type 2 diabetic, as I was pointing out earlier, get on the green coffee bean. That's going to be a lifesaver for you because it's going to decrease the amount of blood sugar in your bloodstream, keeping it more stable, so your insulin receptors can repair and resensitize. Because that's what type 2 diabetes is when your insulin receptors lose sensitivity and cells can't take up glucose anymore. So green coffee bean for type 2 diabetics is amazing, but like I said, even for people that aren't type 2 diabetes or looking for a weight loss advantage, it keeps blood sugar levels more stable. If blood sugar levels are more stable, you can tap into fat as an energy substrate, and you're going to be burning fat throughout the course of the day much longer. Raspberry ketone, again, as a recap, the Raspberry-K is shifting your body from carbohydrate oxidation to fatty acid oxidation, ultimately creating a fat-burning zone in the body. So when you're using raspberry ketones, your body is preferentially always in a fat-burning state throughout the course of the day. A great benefit to have when you're trying to lose weight. African Mango Plus, main mechanism is really the natural appetite suppressant effect. Most subjects note a significant reduction in their desire to eat when they're using African Mango. but internally it's having all those other health benefits, including the reduction in inflammatory markers, more stable blood sugar levels, and an increase in natural calorie expenditure. So again, when you're buying a SlimCentials brand, you're guaranteed to get the clinically proven, the authentic material, and the clinically proven dosage every time. And we're trying to take the guesswork out, but at the end of the day, Weight Off was actually created 2.5 years ago, and we actually are just waiting for three United States and Canadian patents on it, because it was well formulated right from the beginning. I'm actually a product formulator, but I have to give myself credit just because we did use green coffee bean in the form of sphedol 2.5 years ago before anyone knew what it was. We were using razpberi-k and the raspberry ketones 2.5 years ago before anyone knew what it was. Now it's the biggest thing in weight loss because they're the most effective nutrients in weight loss. What Weight Off gives you is it gives you the clinically proven level of sphedol or green coffee bean extract, gives you the clinically proven level of raspberry ketones, but also seven other nutrients that synergistically work with the formulation to accomplish 5 things when it comes to weight loss. I pointed out earlier that raspberry ketones on their own are somewhat of an incomplete weight loss strategy, because you're really just looking at shifting your body from carbohydrate oxidation to fatty acid oxidation, which is a part of the puzzle. Fatty acid oxidation is definitely a part of it. But what a lot of formulations fail to look at is the thyroid. The thyroid regulates your entire metabolism. It's not functioning, your metabolism shuts down. So Weight Off actually has a thyroid component in it that helps support healthy thyroid function, so your metabolism can stay up and keep going even while you're dieting. It also has a nutrient that stabilizes blood sugar, not just the sphedol. I talked about type 2 diabetes and insulin receptor losing sensitivity. It also has chromium polynicotinate, which is one of the most bioavailable forms of chromium that resensitizes that insulin receptor, and with the sphedol working to control blood sugar levels, your blood sugar levels are consistently more stable, and with your thyroid actually working, you can actually put yourself into a weight loss state. Because guess what? If your thyroid isn't functioning and your blood sugar levels are constantly high, you will never lose weight, no matter what. It's just, your body is just, if your thyroid isn't functioning, it regulates your entire body weight. If T4 is not being produced and T4 is not being converted to T3, which are your 2 primary thyroid hormones, it regulates your body weight. If it's not, that's why people that have sluggish thyroids have difficulty losing weight, because they need T4. And without it, they're not going to lose weight. So that's why the Weight Off looked at thyroid health first, then it looked at blood sugar, because if your blood sugar levels are always high, guess what? You're never going to dip into your fat stores for energy. So we wanted to make sure blood sugar levels were in control. The third thing we looked at was calorie expenditure. We're adding a specific level of something called EGCG from green tea extract. It's called epigallocatechin gallate. Sounds like a fancy word. The takeaway is we're adding the exact level proven to increase at-rest calorie expenditure by 4 to 5%. So we're actually enhancing the metabolism by helping you burn more calories. Because the fat loss is pretty easy, or weight loss is pretty easy, is burn more calories than you're taking in. But make sure thyroid and blood sugar levels are taken into account. Then burn more calories. The fourth thing is actually stimulating satiety, which you're feeling of fullness. So you're ultimately eating less calories, so you can get yourself on the right side of the calorie equation to lose weight. So what we're including in Weight Off is something called Capsimax, which is actually a patented and well-researched capsaicinoid complex. It's derived from hot red peppers. It's enteric coated, but standardized for a component called capsaicinoids. Bottom line, when capsaicinoids are in your body before you eat, the study showed a 12 to 14% reduction in over an 18-hour calorie intake. So ultimately, it's causing you to consume less food, which is terrific when it comes to weight loss. You want to burn more calories and consume less food. And the fifth thing you want to be looking at is fatty acid oxidation, which is really the finishing step in the weight loss equation. Is you want to be, utilizing those fatty acids and giving off as heat and energy. And actually, the raspberry-K and the raspberry ketones are extremely effective at kind of acting as the finishing move in weight loss. So when it comes to a well-rounded formulation, the Weight Off really hits all the points. And I want to point out, a lot of people are hesitant to even enter the weight loss category because they associate it with a lot of negative side effects, whether it's high blood pressure or heart palpitations or anxiety. And majority of the products do cause those conditions. The reason why is because they've been poorly formulated with high levels of caffeine and central nervous system stimulants that cause 99.9% of the negative side effects when it comes to weight loss products. We purposely stayed away from the inclusion of high levels of caffeine in the formulation and Weight Off because, number one, we were dealing with people that were heavily medicated, and number two, we were dealing with people that were sick of using weight loss products that caused a lot of negative side effects. So with the strategy we used by looking at these 5 areas with using key nutrients that synergistically work together, we were able to, number one, get a product that was effective, but also a product that was actually extremely safe. And that really is the key with weight off, is getting effectiveness and safety in there at the same time. Because a lot of times when you have something that's safe, you lose the effectiveness, or when you have something that's effective, you lose the safety. So that really is what weight off is all about, and it definitely by far is the strongest weight loss formula. Now, some of you might not know who I am. My name is Ryan Foley. I'm actually a weight loss and anti-aging researcher, and I own NouvelCare Health Sciences, which is the company on the right there. And just, you know, we've been out for almost 6 years now. We actually on the Dragon's Den. We had investment in the company because of basically the 5 fundamentals that we stand for. Again, we only use clinically proven concentrations of all active ingredients. The exact extracts used in human clinical studies are the only ones we'll use. Plant materials are sourced from the cleanest regions in the world. A lot of people do not care about where their biomass or starting material of the plant comes from. They'll get it anywhere. As long as it's cheap per kilogram, they'll get it anywhere. And as long as it says 500 milligrams of something on the label, they don't care. We, on the other hand, as a product formulator myself and someone who uses all of my brands and all my products, I want to take a lot of consideration in terms of what goes into the product, because number one, I use it, and number two, I want to be able to give it to my customer and feel confident that number one, it's going to be the results, it's going to be safe, it's going to be effective. And number 4 is we maximize active ingredients in the formulations to 99.9%. All of our products are encapsulation, 2-piece encapsulations. Beware of any products that are in tablets or caplets, because between 60 and 70% of that is excipients and fillers, things that may interfere with your active ingredient absorption and effectiveness. So beware, when you're buying a caplet or tablet product, there's a lot of excipients and fillers in there. That's why we pride ourselves on using 2-piece encapsulation and maximizing the active natural ingredients to 99.9% of the capsule weight. We want to make sure that we're selling you a natural product and not an excipient or a filler, because that's what you should be investing in. And that also allows us to actually add and get more active ingredients into the formulation to make a much more diverse and well-formulated product. I'll even point out that as a little bit of a learning, you'll notice that razpberi-k, or the raspberry ketone product that we have, has 100 milligrams of raspberry-k. Well, guess what? We use a single capsule that has a 550 fill weight. After the 100 milligrams, guess what we chose to use? Most companies will use MCC, microcrystalline cellulose, which is a fancy word for wood pulp. We actually use full spectrum raspberry powder as the filling agent to work with the pure raspberry ketone. Again, going back to the philosophy of the company, is 99.9% of all of our capsules have active ingredients, not fillers. Same with the African mango. We use a full spectrum African mango powder in addition to the Well-Trim IG at 150 milligrams. Because we don't want to fill it up with MCC or wood pulp, because it does interfere with the activity of the product, and generally speaking, I don't want to put wood pulp in my body, I don't want it to go in your body. So that really, again, gives you a philosophy behind what NouvelCare is all about. Like I said, we have actually anti-aging brands. Our core brand is actually called Age Off. It was launched on the shopping channel 2.5 years ago. We're actually in our 3rd generation, but it's probably by far the most powerful internal anti-aging formulation available in the market today. Has 1 US patent. It is by far one of our best formulations, and if you're looking at something for youth sustainability and anti-aging, that's something you may be looking at. It also has indirect weight loss properties to it. But what we covered here today was the best weight loss nutrients, again, green coffee bean plus, the African mango, and the raspberry ketone. Again, probably the three best, safest, and most effective weight loss nutrients. And we also covered the weight off, which is, again, a combination of all of these nutrients in one formulation. And last but certainly not least, we do believe in social responsibility. When I started the company, I basically built something called Earth-On before I even launched the company. And Earth-On is all about basically teaching people how to live in a more sustainable manner. So if you go to the earthon.com website, you can actually sign up for a petition, and it really is just a way of living. It's basically talking about the 5 foundations of sustainable living and what you can do as an individual, not to change the world, but to do individual things that make a small difference in the world. And if everyone was doing it, you know, we would have a big change. So again, the NouvelCare Health Sciences and Earth-On, you can find the earthon.com website. You can also go to SlimCentials.com. That will cover in-depth detail on the 3 products I covered in the beginning of the presentation. It also cites all the research, and not just citing it. We actually have the full-length study of the paper you can PDF and download.
We also include the certificate of authenticity, which shows the actual lot number that was used for the latest batch of product that we launched. Again, a lot of detail goes into producing these products. We're not just in it for the profit, we're in it to give people the real thing when it comes to weight loss nutrients. I've been in this since I was 13 years old, and proud of my environment. My mother taught me at an early age, said, "You are what you eat, Ryan." And as a sponge, I had a lot of association between the nutrition you put inside of you and how it directly makes you look, feel, and function. And so I've dedicated my life to the natural products industry, and I believe that with buying a NuvoCare product, you are getting the best. And I can safely say that. And thank you for your attention today, and hope you have a great rest of the show.